Hi there, everybody, and welcome to Spotlight on the Arts. I'm Will Schreiner, and I will be your host today, so please hold your mail till the end of the week. Today we'll be discussing a topic very near and dear to me, which is namely improv, comedy, how to make people laugh. But first, let's meet our panelist. Bill Hirschman is an arts journalist and a founder of FloridaTheaterOnStage.com. Welcome, Bill. Carol Cassie is a theatrical marketing specialist, and you can find her marketing website on carolcassie.com. Tim Davis, a new member of our team, is artistic director of the New City Players, and our two guests for today are sisters. You can tell them that these are the two right here, Angelica and Alexandra Zadak. They are the proud owners of This Is Improv. But before we start bombarding you with questions about how to be funnier, let's take a look at a little bit of your video in action.
Welcome to This Is Improv. Are you having a company retreat or a private event? Need a host or just to have some fun? Well, welcome to the ride. Our goal is to unconventionally help individuals create a culture where they would be heard and respected in the community, business, and life. Oh, and to make people laugh, of course. And that's exactly what we've been doing ever since. We educate students at local high schools and colleges like Nova Southeastern University, entertaining thousands with such as Trevor Noah, and training corporate to openly communicate and create. We love what we do. Angelica is the lead writer with corporate experience, and Alexandra, the lead director with technical experience. They are two very different halves to an especially awesome whole. Angelica and Alexandra know what working with others is all about. It's about respect and about having fun. They bring in their experiences to every aspect of This Is Improv. We take away the pressure of finding great and reliable event entertainment, because we are that great and reliable event entertainment. Our shows fit your vision. We've performed everywhere from barns to arenas full of people. Looking for a family-friendly show? We'll clean the show up or write something new for your venue. See? No pressure. We hope to help you find your funny.
Very good. Finding your funny, that's a tough thing to promise.
Oh, yeah.
Some people, wow, we found the funny and it wasn't there.
Definitely.
But where did this idea come from? Let's teach people improv.
Well, Angelica and I just love making people laugh. When we were younger, our father would show us all the Bob Hope movies ever, and we found comfort in that comedy. We found something different, a whole different world in the comedy, and the fact that you could put that into improvisation and again create that whole world, it was just no-brainer for us to go into that side of theater.
Yeah, I mean, improv really is about listening. It teaches you to listen. I mean, the key, the key phrase in improv is yes and,
exactly,
where you're encouraging people to respond in some way or another. And I think, I mean, that's a big problem in society is nobody's listening anymore. We're looking at our phones, we're looking at our notes.
Yeah.
What do you find most people that come in really want to get out of your class?
They want to feel like they can talk to people. A lot of people feel really closed off nowadays because of the phone, which is so crazy because we're all so connected now. But we don't feel connected because we're not paying attention to what's happening here and now.
Exactly.
We're not in the moment anymore. And that's what we try to teach people.
Yeah, I mean, my wife says I don't listen. I said, just text me your beefs. But it is a tool. I mean, for so many people who are nervous, I mean, it must help you get through the nerves, which I know you're an actor, so do you have nerves when you go on stage still?
No, never.
Never?
No, that's not true. Always.
Yeah,
always right before you go on. Absolutely. Yeah.
But you know, when you're on stage, having the ability, I'm a stand-up comic, so you know, we just listen to ourselves. And when I got into improv, and I took Bill Hudnut taught a class that Harvey Lembeck taught, so way back groundings, and it really taught you to listen to the other actor and to care what the other, because a lot of us just wait my line, and then something happens, and then my line again. So how do you teach people to listen?
Well, when we were younger, we had a difficult time listening to each other, period.
Yes.
I mean,
we loved each other. So much.
Yes, but two girls growing up in the same home was difficult. So our mom is actually a professor at Nova. She teaches psychology, and she was the first one to tell us, just talk it out. And that was
Did she make you sit on the couch when she was
Oh yeah.
This is bringing back some
a lot of memories. And finally communicating and talking to each other, we'll yell at each other, we'll do everything, but at the end of the day, it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't know you felt that way. I didn't know you thought that way. And it's so interesting to find those things about people. When we do our corporate retreats, some people find out that this one woman had 10 kids at home. They didn't know that before, and they had been working with her for years. And it's incredible what happens if you just pay attention and you ask the right questions.
Yeah, so you're able to sort of delve. Is it delve? Bill, you're the journalist.
Yeah, pretty much.
Delve? It's one of those, some big word. It's my word of the day on Wikipedia today. No, but it does help you to get into people's lives by pulling information out of them. And I would imagine improv, you need something about, if you say you were going to do improv with Bill, you'd ask him, what was your first question? You'd ask him, how long you ever had that beard and when you thinking about shaving it?
Yeah, it looks like it has a lot of character. What does that say about you?
And what would you do with that?
And then
If you're putting on a show and you're putting on a show and you go, okay, I'd like a topic, and somebody says, how about my beard? What is your thought process? What do you do when somebody throws a topic at you that you haven't already gone, like, that they're going to ask you about Donald Trump, or they're going to ask you about something, and you've already thought up some stuff. But when somebody throws you something you haven't expected, what is your thought process? How do you do what you do?
We think of it kind of how you think about life. You don't know what you're going to get each day. It rained this morning. I had no idea. Grabbed my raincoat last minute.
Right.
So if someone tells me something like a beard can mean anything to me. A beard can transfer to a bear because they sound similar. A beard can transfer to hairy people or non-hairy people. A beard can go into a homeless man or a executive with a nice clean cut beard that's going out, or a hipster or whatever. I mean, like, from one idea, you have to be able to have the willing to be open to a million other ideas.
And then how do you take it the next step into some kind of performance situation? How do you express those thoughts?
So we think like, okay, there's a beard. Do we want to turn that beard into a character, or do we want to turn that into a conflict? And from there, we kind of roll with it.
Yeah, does the beard become an actual person? Or does it become a subject or a plot within the sketch?
And this is where we have to rely on our ensemble, right?
Yeah.
So different than stand-up, when you're standing up there alone.
And when I look at the beard, I go immediately on the attack. I can tell what you had for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And Carol, when you had the beard, you were very much more attractive when you had your beard. But that's what comics do, is we kind of belittle and insult.
But you've got to do it on your feet, right? I mean, and if I understand your process right, you don't then retreat for 10 minutes and then come out. You do this standing up in front of the people.
people.
We don't have a cave. No. It does not have wonders in it.
No,
We have to do it,
unfortunately.
all on stage.
Yeah, with improv, there's these games, and these games have a set of rules, but in between the rules, it's completely blank. I mean, you have to have a clear beginning, middle, and end, but it's up to the audience to give you those ideas. So you have to go up there as a blank sheet of paper and wait for them to grab a crayon and just color you in.
Do you prepare differently? I know you do corporate work, which must be very interesting. Do you prepare differently for when you're going into some large multinational corporation, as opposed to when you're doing a class for children? Or
yeah, it's much more structured for our corporate clients, just because they have a specific goal in mind.
Yeah.
With the kids, there's a little bit more freedom when we teach the classes, because most of the parents just want them to be able to work with other kids. But with corporate clients, they might want to perfect their mission and vision statement or something. So we have to create games or pull games that are specified towards that specific goal and structure it to kind of manipulate the situation in their favor.
And also in the corporate world, though, they want to hear their buzzwords, their lexicon.
Yeah,
So the more research you do in the corporate arena, I always found the more you can talk about them and do your homework on them, that the more they're going to respond.
Yeah.
The audience loves to see their boss get taken down a little bit.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But you mentioned the ensemble, and when you're talking about corporate, I would assume that both of these involve a reliance on team building and cooperation, and that being a key. Everybody having each other's back.
Yes.
Talk a little about
That's a
that.
huge deal.
So for me, that was the big thing that brought me into improv. The idea of having each other's back in a way that I've never seen before. Really, you have to get to the nitty-gritty of who you're on stage with, because if you fumble, then someone else has to pick you up.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
so when you are working with a group of people who have to work together, they have to work together, you have to find ways to have them connect. So finding that ensemble and bringing that ensemble together is magical, because it's something so unique to people, to the corporate world, which is insane, because they're in a place where they have to connect constantly. They're constantly with someone, but they don't see each other. They don't listen to each other.
And you got to trust in your other players are going to come back with something. You know, I mean, I always
100%,
found when I was doing improv, the better the classmates, the better the improv, the better the response.
Oh yeah. We would do the summer immersions over at Second City for improvisation. And after every class, no matter the fact that we were going to leave in a week, we went out to dinner together, we saw shows together, we would get together before, during the breaks, everything. And you just saw throughout a 24-hour period how connected you were to these people just by finding out a little bit of their life, or how they walk, how they talk, how they do all these things. It's incredible.
It's a shorthand that comes from doing it with the same people, right? Right. We have a video of your improv troupe performing at a nightclub. So before we watch it, tell us what are we seeing and what do we see from this?
So basically, this is a performance at Falcon Pub. It's our new home for improv, so we're there every Wednesday night. And we are doing just basic improv performances that you would see. I mean, there's a set of games, rules, no in between, full audience support.
I heard the word pub, so it helps when they're drinking, right?
Yes, it does. Yes, you
That's
always
the key
want
to
your
a good
audience
audience.
drinking. Yeah.
All right, well, here's the clip. Take a look at this. Here you guys are in action.
This is improv. Once I say my spell, you will become my servant.
Okay, but, you know, are there any caveats? Like, you know, do I get any benefit from being an eternal slave?
Well, on Tuesdays we have tacos.
Where's the contract, lady?
Oh yeah, no, totally. You just sign in blood right there.
You know, this couples counseling is going really well. Just feel really safe in her arms.
Yeah, it's going so well.
You know, could you loosen up a little bit? I know.
Namaste, and welcome to our silent retreat. Starting in 5 minutes, there will be no talking.
Yeah, it's really hard for me. I'm an improv actor, and this is just like you just keep talking and just until something comes
4
up.
minutes until there's no more talking.
Well, I came here. It was a great idea. You know, my girlfriend said this would be great.
3 minutes.
This would be a great thing, and I'm like, you know, can
You've
we?
got 1 minute because you're annoying.
Can we revise this?
5,
But please,
3.
someone say freeze! Aren't you in FAU medical school?
Aren't you the guy who wasn't accepted?
Don't you know that burns my soul?
Don't you know I don't care?
Don't you care about my happiness?
Did it ever look like I cared about your happiness?
Wasn't I giving you chiropractic help?
What do you do on a blind date that's boring?
So my friend called me and her cousin's cat. I kind of have to. Her cat. You know.
Oh, I just passed level 72. New York City taxi cab driver.
Hello, welcome to New York. Oh, lovely to see you, It's so wonderful.
Okay, yes, we'd like to go to Times Square.
Oh, there is always time to go to Times Square.
No.
My cousin actually has a wonderful.
So thank you guys for joining us. We hope to see you all again next week. We are
This is improv.
Very good, very good. And the bell is great because you know you can move on. You know? Because we got nowhere to go with this, but aren't stereotypes when the cab drivers started doing the accent? Those are the biggest laughs, right?
Yeah.
Because things that the audience can relate to.
Yeah. So when we're on stage, we're not just working with each other. We're working with the audience.
Sure.
Yeah.
And silence is the enemy. In improv.
Sometimes.
Really?
Sometimes it can really work in your favor because with awkward silence comes laughter and nervous giggles and oh no, what's going to happen now? So sometimes it can work in your favor, and we learned that from the older classic comedies that our dad used to have us watch.
Oh yeah, I mean Jack Benny was a master of the pause. You know?
Yes,
I mean,
he was.
He had a bit that he used to do. He'd ask for this violin. He said, "This is a Stradivarius, the most valuable violin. It's worth. I can't even insure. It's worth millions of dollars." And he would say to a stagehand, "May I have my violin?" And they would fling a violin across the stage, and it would hit the ground and just skid into the wings. And he would look at it, look at the audience, look at the guy, and he would get like a 2-minute sustained laugh from the silence. It was one of my favorite bits. Now, you're an actor and a director. Do you fear silence as an actor?
No, I mean, I think silence is a very powerful tool. I would totally agree with you. Even the silence that's like, you're about to speak, but then they keep laughing, so you don't. You know, it's like really feeling the audience. I had a question, though. Just watching that clip made me think, kind of the function of comedy in society, because you've committed your life to this, and obviously
That's your first mistake.
I mean, stand-up comedy is huge right now. We're getting all the Netflix specials, and
Yeah, we are.
the big improv houses in Chicago and New York are nationally known now. What do you think of comedy? Like, why do you do it, and how does it contribute to a culture or society? And you know, towing the line of, like, obviously we're having a conversation too about what's offensive and what's not offensive.
Right.
What is comedy?
Yeah.
So I'm curious about your thoughts on that.
Well, improv, you know, it's a lifestyle. You have to be very committed to it. You can't just kind of dabble in it if you don't have something else to dabble in. This is something that we think is amazing for our society now. Like we said before, there's not that much communication, no matter how much is on the cell phone. Face-to-face communication is kind of difficult.
And comedy is such a commentary on life.
Yeah.
So not just what's going on the bigger scale, but the smaller scale. And I think that's what's important about the individual aspects of comedy. It's specific to each and every one of us.
Yeah.
So, yeah, elaborate.
Yeah, well,
Disarming, yeah.
I was going to say, it also allows us to, I feel like oftentimes comedy allows you to talk about taboo topics.
It's a freedom.
Yeah.
You know, we get on stage, and I always tell my kids this, I go, you're free. You don't have, there's the rules, and you don't have to pay too much attention to them. Just know to play the game. You're playing every day. Yeah. And that's what it is when you go in the classroom. You have your set of rules, but you gotta do little things in between, you know?
Yeah. I'm thinking about your different areas. You know, you work with kids, you work with people who do improv. You probably work with actors, so people who aren't as experienced with improv but do acting, or stand-up comedians, and then corporate. Like all the different zones, do you find that people approach it differently, or come in with, they need different things, or they need different skills?
Definitely. Yeah. So with the corporate, you have the listening, and I love working with corporate, and I love working with kids because they both have the same reaction.
Yeah,
they have
they
this
do.
eye-opening moment, like, what is this?
Yeah, 100%. It's crazy finding like the children and the adults having the same reaction. Always like scares me a little bit because because it's like, you should know that it's okay to talk to each other. It's okay to giggle. That's fine, because there's appropriate times for that.
So one thing I'm curious about, back in Jack Benny's day, the society was of a piece that while there were lots of different facets, we all laughed at a lot of the same things.
Yeah.
When you're performing now in this society where we're very divided and we have very different approaches to things, do you find that your comedy is still unifying, or that you are actually only reaching different people with different kinds of material? We were talking earlier about Stephen Colbert, who is coming from a particular place. So when you're performing, what is there any kind of, what's your philosophy about what plays and doesn't play?
We really observe the audience.
Yeah.
And we try to see what the demographic is in the area, what's going to hit well and what's going to hit to hurt.
Yeah, we're lucky enough that, like, especially at the pub, there's no stage. I mean, we're just there waiting with the audience until the show starts. So yeah, we kind of like listen in on the conversation, see what they're comfortable with, what they're not comfortable with, talk to them a little bit before the show. We're very big on connecting with who our audience is. And you get to know what their boundaries are a little bit, but you can still push it. You find that when you push it a little bit, everyone ends up connecting, because you've all met these people. Like, there's...
So you have to do a lot of pivoting very quickly.
Yes.
And there's also bits that work, and then you bring them back. If it's like a stand-up comic, we don't say the same thing once and throw it out. If it gets a laugh, we hang on to it. I mean, that's what attracts. What attracts people to comedy is especially me. What attracted me to it was when I got my first laugh, and I heard that, and I was like, "Boy, this is magic." It's like applause. It's like applause, and I have an applause box right next to the bed. So
wake up in the morning.
I'm awake, and there's applause.
It's worth getting up to.
But the thing I always found fascinating about improv is, as opposed to stand-up, people watch and appreciate what you think. When you guys are doing improv, we appreciate how you think, how quickly you can think, and how you can, bounce off of each other. That's sort of I think the appeal of watching improv. Because my sister was in improv too, and they got to where they had bits that they did over and over and over. And I think when you have that goal, you just hear it in your head and you go, oh, I'll use that again.
Yeah, I mean, for certain games we have bits, very clear bits. Like for the dating game, I'm always the host, and Angelica's always like my niece that lives in my basement.
Yes.
And
those are our characters.
And those are our characters every single time. Different names, different scenarios, different bachelors for her and things like that, but you know that this is what they want to see in that specific bit, so they're expecting that every once in a while, definitely.
Do you get the kids, do you let them do a show in front of an audience at some point? Do they have a kid audience? Kid audiences are much different, right?
Yeah, they are.
They laugh at like scatological stuff and or they laugh at, it's interesting because kids, like a potty joke is probably the biggest laugh.
Yes.
For a kid,
We had a year. That's not funny anymore.
I'm still using it.
I change it. We had a year where that's all it was. It was potty jokes.
100%.
And we had to teach them, yes, you can use your potty joke once.
We gave them one chance and we said it better be a good one. And then they're like, okay, and they worked on it for a good 30 minutes. And then they
had a whole sketch.
They had the whole thing
devoted
laid
to
out.
that potty joke.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and the audience loved it.
When you see a kid come in, do you see a light bulb go off in some of these kids where this is fun, I want to do this?
Definitely.
That's probably the reward of having young people.
Yeah, because they realize that it's a game.
How old are these kids?
Ages 5 to 14, and then we do the adult classes, which is 19 to whatever.
So a
176.
5-year-old
However old you are.
doing, I mean, as far as I can recall, a 5-year-old is constantly doing improv.
They are. They are. I mean, I have a 5-year-old, and she's just a little actress. I mean, in class, all her teachers know her name. The whole entire faculty knows the name. And she is on all the time. She doesn't stop. And I appreciate that because she keeps class moving.
When you guys are teaching, particularly people like actors and or other people doing performance improv, do you have advice for what doesn't work where you go, we know from experience, stay the heck away from this?
We say like crude humor because it's a crutch. We were taught very early on that crude humor is a crutch. It's an easy laugh sometimes, and then it's also very easy to offend people. So we always say stay away from that. Look at each other in the eyes. It makes it more intimate for you and the audience. Don't be afraid to look at the audience. Makes it more intimate for them, makes them feel involved. And just stay true to yourself. Your word vomit, let it happen.
The worst thing you can do is try to be funny.
Exactly.
And one thing before, we're not out of time yet, but before, I want to make sure, how can people get in touch with you? Do you have a website?
Yes,
Yes,
we do.
we have a website, www.thisisimprov.com.
That's a hard one.
Or you can email us at info@thisisimprov.com. We're very easy to get to.
Well, like if a corporation wants to hire you, what do you charge to come and we're going to go to the X corporation and do a show with your employees, starring your employees? How much would that cost?
That depends.
It depends, right?
Good
That's
answer.
a good answer. That's the right answer. You know what I say is, what's your budget? And then that's how But it is, the corporate world is probably the most fiscally rewarding in a sense.
Well, it's nice because you have people who know what they want to.
Right.
And it's
they're
people
very
with
particular.
very clear goals.
Yeah.
So
You see that, and you're like, okay, yes, I will work with you. Now let's talk about this. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the in-betweens. That's always important.
Going back to corporate, are there things that they tell you, okay, don't go there?
yes. So we put together profiles of the corporation
Smart.
with headshots and everything. And we try to see who meshes well together and who doesn't mesh well together. And sometimes we'll mix them, and sometimes based on what we're told, we don't mix them.
Yeah.
Well,
Very
politics
specific.
and religion are good to stay away from.
Yes.
You know.
Embezzlement.
Yeah, I was doing a show for a bunch of police officers, and I did a couple Trump jokes, and it was like, ooh, and I immediately switched to Hillary jokes, and they were like,
You gotta pivot.
you got it. Well, yeah, you have to hear and react. Well, now when you're in a play, you can't. You got to stay with the script, right?
Yeah,
You
I
ever
mean,
go off book and screw around?
I mean, things go wrong
Yeah.
in live theater. I think that's, I encourage all actors to get improv training because of the listening thing. You know, the challenge of theater and acting is you're repeating the same thing over and over, so how does it feel spontaneous?
Right,
Improv
right,
teaches you listening, it teaches you reacting on your feet, and like this connection,
Yeah.
so valuable for an actor so that you can always kind of feel spontaneous. in
Especially
the
problem
performance.
solving on stage, definitely.
Oh, for sure,
If
because
a
things
plant
go wrong.
falls, you can't leave it there.
You gotta clean it
gotta
up.
pick
Someone
it up
misses an
and
entrance. You gotta
ad
bam.
lib a little bit. Yeah.
It's keeping it fresh. It's keeping it fresh, keeping it on top. If you're on stage and somebody drops a tray of drinks and you don't acknowledge it,
the
people think,
worst.
oh, the guy's not listening. He's not present.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So you always have to go with what happens in the room.
Yeah.
Definitely.
That's the difference between having robots on the stage and having people on the stage.
For now. AI
now.
improv is going to be.
I think we've got a great set of robots today.
That'd be wonderful. Thank you, pajamas.
Yeah, right?
Right.
Well, any final tips you want to give our audience about how to be a funnier person?
Oh,
Yeah.
real life. Comedy stems from life. Reality is comedy, and if you're okay with mirroring those two, then bring it out. Bring out your insecurities. They're there for the world anyways. So you might as well let it go and lean into whatever it is that you want to, and
Cool.
Be in the moment.
be in the moment. Yeah, definitely.
It's a great
yourself.
diffuser. You know, if there's
Yeah.
tension, if there's problems in the home. I mean, comedy. I grew up around comedy, so you know we always
Yeah.
laughed at dinner, and it's important.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
Well, thank you guys for being here. You two certainly find a lot of ways to make people laugh. It's been great learning about all that you guys do. Thanks for being on our show today. Did you have fun?
Thank you for having us. Yeah,
thank
it was
you.
so much fun.
I want to thank our panelists for being here, making this a fun spotlight look at the arts. That's the name of the show, right? Isn't it? Spotlight on the Arts. I'm ad-libbing. You know, there's things
doing
written
amazing.
down.
You're
I've written
doing
it down, but it
amazing.
goes by. We're celebrating theater,
Great.
music, fine arts, literary works, and comedy. You know, comics. The top 10 comics make like $200 million. Jerry Seinfeld, #1, made $200 million last year. I don't know what I'm doing here as a host. I got to get back into comedy. If it's an art and we're talking about, we'd like to hear from you. Any suggestions or comments may be sent to spotlightonthearts@browardschools.com. And while you're online, check out floridatheateronstage.com and carolcassie.com. You can catch up on all the entertainment news and plan your shows for the week, month, or year. Please remember to tune in next week for another enlightening program where I won't be here. But as our founder always says, Iris Acker, she said, what does she say? Go to the theater. Go to the theater and see all these people. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.